What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats of every one of the weapons in Black Ops Cold War, and in today's episode we're finally going to be wrapping up the assault rifle category and covering the FFAR. And first up, as always, let's have a look at the damage profile, which is the lowest in the assault rifle category. It only deals 27 damage up close and 23 at longer ranges, meaning it's going to take you 6 to 7 shots to kill with this gun, which is a lot. Additionally, just like with all of the assault rifles, there are no extra body multipliers either. We do, however, get a standard headshot multiplier of 1.4, and this takes our headshot damage profile to a 37-32, and what this means is at any range, it's going to require at least 2 headshots mixed in with body shots in order for those headshots to reduce the number of shots it'll take to kill. So it's not necessarily horrible in the headshot department, but it's also not great. You have to hit at least 2 of those bullets to the head. As for our rate of fire, this is the fastest in the assault rifle category at 909 rounds per minute, which is very fast and therefore very forgiving as well. If you miss the odd shot here or there, it doesn't really change your time to kill all that much. And speaking of time to kill, we get a pretty average time to kill value for assault rifles at 330 milliseconds up close. Now this isn't slow by any means, but like I said, it's right around average. It doesn't really stand out in this area at all. However, it is worth noting, if you do manage to land those 2 headshots mixed in with 3 body shots up close and you get a 5-shot kill, then your time to kill potential is 264 milliseconds, which is very fast for this game. Next up, let's have a look at our bullet velocity, which is 625 meters per second, and this is fairly standard for assault rifles, a little bit on the faster side, which is nice. Then let's take a look at our ranges, which as you can see here, our 5-shot kill range extends out to about 38 meters, which is fairly standard for assault rifles. And then we can also see what happens when we pop our suppressors on here. Again, very standard, nothing too surprising here. And then our barrel attachments as well. And with these barrel attachments, we can actually get some really nice range bonuses out of them. Now, getting into hardcore, this gun is very interesting. It's one of only 2 full auto guns in the entire game that doesn't have a 1-shot kill potential in hardcore to the body. However, if you use the 19.5-inch Task Force barrel, the last one that you unlock, this boosts your damage up close just enough to get a 1-shot kill in hardcore, and it also boosts our damage drop-off point by 50%, so you can see here, it gives you a very solid 1-shot kill range, and therefore, if you are playing hardcore with this gun for whatever reason, make sure you're using that Task Force barrel. But next up we have Hipfire, which is very standard for the assault rifles, nothing to say here about it. And then also our idle sway, which there is a little bit of idle sway with this gun. It does have sub movement while aiming down sight, but that's fine because this isn't really a long range gun anyway, as we can see with our recoil. This gun kicks very strong upwards really quickly, and it also starts off by kicking to the right, and then it corrects itself and comes back to the left. It kind of has a zigzag to it, and this is fairly difficult to control beyond mid-range. It's not quite the worst in the assault rifle category. The Groza technically has worse recoil than the FFAR, but it is a very close second. As for our handling stats, our aim down sight time is very standard for assault rifles at 300 milliseconds, and then our stated sprint out time is the same as the other assault rifles at 400 milliseconds. However, the actual experience sprint out time is noticeably slower than all of the other assault rifles in the game at 333 milliseconds. This is at the point where it's slow enough that it will definitely impact your gameplay performance, and you really do have to be aware of this when building your class setups and while playing in the game. But moving on, let's get into our reload time, and our reload add time with the FFAR is 1.44 seconds, which is right around average for assault rifles. And then of course, here's a list of all of the reload add times for every one of the magazine attachments on this gun. And since this gun has such a high fire rate, I do tend to recommend either using a magazine that will increase your reload speed significantly, or one that will at least boost your magazine capacity. But finally, for base stats, let's get into our movement speeds, which are all standard for assault rifles. There's nothing too interesting to point out here, it's just the same as all the other assault rifles. And this is where it's time to get into the strengths and weaknesses of this gun. Unfortunately, there aren't very many strengths with it currently. The one strength it has is it has a really fast fire rate, and therefore it's quite forgiving if you miss shots, or it's just good for those people that like a really high fire rate assault rifle. And then on top of this, the bullet velocity is good. It's not like it's a significant standout from the other assault rifles or anything, but it's got a good base bullet velocity. As for our weaknesses, of course, recoil. This is a big weakness of this gun. It's fairly difficult to control this recoil beyond a mid-range gunfight. And then also, that big weakness that you have to be aware of with this gun is it has a very slow sprint out time for an assault rifle. Now, before we get into our best attachments and example class setups for this, there is one unique attachment I want to talk about, and this is that Task Force barrel, which boosts our damage very slightly And with this, I'll tell you right up front, just don't use this barrel in core game modes. It doesn't boost your damage enough to actually change really anything, and it significantly increases your recoil, as you can see here. That is way too much recoil to be controlling for core game modes. However, like I said earlier in the video, this is a decent attachment for hardcore because it actually gives you a one-shot kill potential. So that's really the only situation where you should be using this barrel on the FFAR. And now let's move into some great attachment combinations and example class setups. And the first one I've got for you guys here is not using the Gunfighter wildcard, so we only get 5 attachments. And normally, I like to go with a suppressed build here, but not with the FFAR. I feel like it relies a little too heavily on other attachments. So with this one, what we're going to be using is a muzzle brake to get a little bit of vertical recoil control, which helps a bit, but we're also combining that with a foregrip, which gives us some horizontal recoil control. And when we combine those two, you can see here that the recoil is definitely more manageable here. It's still not amazing in the recoil department, but it is much easier to control this way. After that, I've got the 34 round speed mag on this, so this is going to allow us to reload really quickly, and we have that higher magazine capacity, which is great since you burn through mags so quickly with this gun. Then we've got the Serpent Wrap, which gives us a nice boost to our aim down sight time, which is great because we just hurt our aim down sight time with the 34 round speed mag. And then finally, we have the CQB pad, which is kind of important on this gun because it helps a lot with our sprint out time. And this gun really needs all the help it can get in that area. So here are our values for this gun. Our range value doesn't change at all, and that's fine because with the recoil of this gun, you shouldn't really be challenging people beyond 38 meters most of the time anyway. Then our velocity is also exactly the same. Our reload add time is nearly instant. It's very quick. Sprint out time is manageable at 266 milliseconds. It's still not great, but it's at least manageable with these attachments. And it's a similar story with the aim down sight time. It's not amazing when it comes to aim down sight time, but it's not bad either. But taking a look at the rest of the class setup here, we've got the dual magnums as our secondary, just because these are the best shotgun in the game basically at this point. We got the stim shot, semtex, and trophy system on this. Our perks are going to be Flak Jacket and Tac Mask, so it's a really objective-oriented class, as you can see. Then we've got Assassin and Scavenger. Scavenger's kind of important because you burn through ammo fairly quickly with this gun. And then finally, since we aren't using a suppressor, I'm not going to bother using Ghost. Instead, I'll be using Spycraft and Ninja. Spycraft just counters so many different things, including field mics, and then Ninja, of course, that's just a staple on every one of my class setups. So that's the first one. Now let's move on to the second one, which does have that Gunfighter wildcard, and therefore we're stacking really heavily on attachments here. But with this, we got the Microflex LED for our optic, just because I really like the looks of that optic. We've got the Agency Suppressor, which gives us a suppressor, as well as a little bit of vertical recoil control, which is nice. Then after that, we're using the 19.5-inch reinforced heavy barrel, which helps with our velocity as well as our damage range. And normally I wouldn't worry about boosting your damage range with this gun, but since we're using the Agency Suppressor, that's hurting our damage range, so we're just trying to offset that a little bit while also gaining some bullet velocity. Then we've got our mounted flashlight on here, which will help with visibility a little bit. The standard foregrip, once again, for that little bit of help to our horizontal recoil control. The 34 round speed mag, I just really like that particular magazine on this gun. The Airborne Elastic Wrap, which is just a great attachment for basically any assault rifles, allows you to snap on target really quickly. You get that flinch resistance, and you can drop shot with it. And then finally, just like with the previous setup, we've got that CQB pad, which is just going to help a good amount with our sprint out time. And with this, I played around with these attachments a lot to find what I feel is sort of the perfect balance for this gun. You're still not really going to be dominating at longer ranges, no matter what attachments you use. So instead, I tried to focus on just making this gun as good and versatile as possible for close to mid-range fights. And taking this into an example class setup here, we've got a shotgun as our secondary, then we've got Stim Shot, Molotov, and Field Mic, and then finally, our perks are going to be Flak Jacket, Scavenger, as well as Ninja. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the FFAR. As for my overall thoughts on this gun, in its current state, I do feel it's the worst assault rifle in the game. It's not that it's completely unusable or anything, but I just feel like it doesn't have enough upsides to make up for all the downsides that it has. It's not a very versatile gun by any means. It should be fairly dominant in close to mid-range gunfights, and you should be able to play aggressively with it, but that really slow sprint out time really holds it back and limits your attachment choices as well. So if it were up to me, I think the big thing I'd like to see with this is just give it a normal assault rifle sprint out time. I think at that point, this gun would become a lot more viable than it currently is, without being instantly overpowered either. I think that would be a very reasonable change. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on the current state of the FFAR in Black Ops Cold War? Do you think this gun is really good and powerful, or do you think it's a little bit too weak? Just let me know those thoughts down below. Now, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes, I've now covered all of the assault rifles currently in the game. I will leave a link to the playlist down below, and I think we're going to kick it off with tactical rifles for the next set of guns. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.